Welcome all. It's draft night again on Primetime Mock, the show where we bring you a different industry draft with special guests from all over the fantasy community every single week. I'm the host of this draft party, Mark Shu. You can find me on Twitter at Primetime Mock and go ahead and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We've got a great show for you tonight. We've got a Superflex draft, and we've got a great group of guests. Let's meet them right now. First up, he's a writer for Dynasty Nerds. We've got Evan Brown. Evan, what's going on? Oh, Evan's not here. Oh, Evan's not in. This is a professional show we're doing.
Hey,
there he is.
Yes.
Evan, what is going on?
He wanted to make a big entrance.
Exactly.
That's it.
There he is.
Thanks,
Evan from Dynasty Nerds. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. It's hot over here. I'm in Ireland, and I'm over here in the States at the moment, and it is flipping hot. Jeez. How do you guys do this?
I don't know. Where you're out in Idaho, is that right?
Yeah.
Or are you in Ireland?
My family actually live in Idaho. I
Oh,
live
wow.
in Ireland. I'm in Belfast, but I'm actually visiting my family. My mom and dad live in Idaho, so super random. But
That
yeah,
is super random.
It's super hot. It was like
That is-
112 degrees the other day.
Holy shit.
No,
It was funny because Evan, you and I have never met before, and I was looking at your info card. I saw that Ireland. It said you had it in Ireland via Idaho on vacay. I was like, well, if he's on vacation in Ireland, what in the hell is he doing on my show right now? But if he's on vacation from Ireland and Idaho, I totally understand.
One eye to another.
No offense to the people of Idaho. We love you out in Idaho. Not much to do though.
Good cover.
Yeah, exactly. The
They're
three
potatoes,
people
right?
Yeah.
They're potatoes from Idaho.
That's right. All right, next up
Yeah,
from the
it's the potato
Dynasty.
connection, man.
That's right.
Irish potatoes.
All right, next up from the Dynasty Junkies, FantasyPros, and the Pro Football Network, we've got Andrew Hall. Andrew, welcome back, man.
Hey, glad to be here. You're on the clock, by the way, Mark. I'll talk for a little bit here. But yeah, I've got a couple articles coming out and looking forward to getting into this draft and talking some SFB with you guys. So glad to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. I can't believe you come back. I'm always surprised every single time somebody
Glutton
comes
for
back.
punishment, I guess. Yeah.
They must be, right? They must be.
We lost the
Let's. I hear you over there, Alex. Let's go right over to Alex from the League with Tomorrow podcast. I can't say your last name. You're gonna have to say it for me, Alex.
It's Kierpiec. Don't worry, nobody can. Hey, pretty pumped to be here. It's obviously first one for me. So, starting slowly in the industry, making my own podcast with a couple league mates. So we're testing it out, having some fun with it. Pretty psyched to be on the show.
Guys, we're turning this into a third round reversal. This was a Scott Fishbowl draft that turned into a.
Oh, I didn't even
know.
notice that.
Call
It was
me
supposed-
out there.
So I was
You
like,
know what?
whoa.
We're turning
I'm
around for
coming up again.
everybody.
Aren't the best drafts the ones that you go in with the spontaneity and not knowing exactly what's going to
know.
happen?
That's the important part about these shows. You got to be water. You got to be water when you're doing the draft room. So we're just going to turn it around for you. I had an impromptu 4th of July Scott Fishbowl draft show. If you want to go back on YouTube and check that out, we've got that going there. So I must have forgot the third round reversal on this Superflex draft, but we're enjoying
I
it
did not
anyway.
expect that.
Nobody did. We all.
I knew it. I looked at the
was-
board. I
was ready for my second pick. I was ready for
Andrew's
my
the only
third pick.
observant one.
I've been here before. What do you want from me?
I'm sick, so it didn't really affect me all that much, which
No,
is
you're
good.
good.
Nope.
All right, and next up, he's also from the Dynasty Junkies podcast and the Trade Addicts podcast. We've got Rocky Petrella. Welcome back, Rocky.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me back. Yeah, I enjoyed it last time. I had a great group last time. I have a great group this time.
It was a wild group last time.
That was interesting. We had Robbie and Outhouse and
Oh, man.
yeah,
That was
Steffi
that was a ton of fun. That was, I think, the biggest show that I put together. That was, I think,
Oh
there was
yeah, I
9.
think there were like 8 of us, or 8 or 9 of us. Yeah,
And you know what? That was when I realized when I actually keep my mouth shut, the show is a lot better. So I'm taking that and running with it, although you can't stop me for long, unfortunately. You really can't. And finally, from Fourth in Frames and Fantasy in Frames, it's Nate Marcum. Nate, what's going on?
Not too much, man. It's good to be on here. I've done a couple of these drafts with you guys silently from the I don't know what the right word would to be is non-live, non-streaming, where I'm just the hopefully sniping people from others and creating a lot of animosity and curse words, but it's good to have you guys actually cuss me out in person over some of these picks. Hopefully is the key word, right?
And you guys can cuss me out because other than Patrick Mahomes, I went on auto draft for this whole thing. It's been a debacle, a real technical issue here on Primetime Mock today. You are witnessing it here first. There are a lot of mistakes happening. We love mistakes here, though. It makes for good
You're off to a balanced
radio.
start. You're all right.
Hey, you
Not
know
too
what?
bad.
With Mahomes, everything looks like a balanced start, though.
That's
You
right,
know,
yeah. Got one of every position.
That's right. So a lot of us are in Scott Fish, and the third round reversal kicked us in the butt. So let's talk a little bit about it. How do we feel about our drafts? Does anybody want to go first?
You know,
I'll start.
Go ahead. Everybody's so
Well, everybody's talking about it before we went live, but I'll start. I think I picked 7. I think Alex, you and I are both 7s in Scott Fish. So we're in that 107 chat, which is just a ton of fun. We're very busy, as a lot of them are. But no, I picked 7. I think Alex maybe did the same, just so I wouldn't be as affected, like Nate said, on that third round reversal. I've only done one third round reversal in my life, and it was a mock draft. So I'm like, I was literally just like, I'm coming into this a little blind. I did a couple SFB mocks, got my feeling for it, and I was like, 7's still fine. And that way you get a lot of value. You don't have to wait for runs. But I think my draft did great through 4 or 5 rounds. I think when I got Derek Carr in the 5th, I felt pretty happy about it. But then after that, it's just been like snipe after snipe. My group in the Incubus group, man, I am telling you what, Jake Anderson and the rest of the gang in there are just killing it. Every single time I feel like we're in the chat going, you got me again. It's a solid group. So the first 4 rounds, I felt happy. And then I felt like maybe, I don't know, second, third day, somewhere in there, everybody sort of woke up and just turned brutal on me. I don't know, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been great to get to know some of those guys. And I'm looking forward to a solid season of playing around with them.
That's a lot like my draft went. I actually really enjoyed my first few picks here with Scott Fishbowl. I started with Lamar Jackson at 5, really liked that, and getting Zeke coming back around at 208. The third round reversal, I thought I was going to be sticking running back heavy, but I went with Diggs and came back with Michael Thomas. And then I ended up with my fifth pick. I went for upside, and I picked Justin Fields as my second quarterback. I really liked that build. I thought it was very unique, and I thought it has the upside that a tournament like this might need for you to sort of separate and get yourself into that top. It might bust. That's all right. I'm okay with that. But the back end of my draft, we've been sniping like crazy. Chris Santos is on the left of me, and he took Trey Sermon and CeeDee Lamb for me, or no. Yeah, Trey Sermon and CeeDee Lamb for me back to back. So I was pretty annoyed about that. And then I've got a fan. I'll shout him out, Tyler Jafar, and he's at @RR_hoodies if you want to find him. And he ended up taking Deontay Johnson from me, and who do I got? J.K. Dobbins. That was the other one he took from me. So it's been a real snipe show on the back side of this draft. Anybody else want to go? Rocky, how about you? Or no? Yeah, Rocky, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like I'm the only one I'm really happy with mine. I started 3 running backs, Barkley, Henry, and Eckler. I took 2 in the 4th, which seems maybe it was a little early after seeing where he went in some other places. But I generally like to wait on quarterback, which is a little bit what I did here already. I got Hopkins at 502. I was really happy about that. And then I think I took Goddard at 611. So, those tight ends in Scott Fishbowl can be big. He was like the one mid-tier guy that I was actually looking to get if I didn't get one of the big 3. And I thought that was a pretty decent price. So yeah, and then at my receivers, I still ended up with Hopkins, and I got Sutton and Galladay and Visca in some of the later rounds. So I'm pretty happy overall.
Yeah, I like that. Alex, how about you? How's your draft going?
Well, besides the fact that all the quarterbacks are now gone around 10, but it's not too bad. I got Dak at 107. I thought that was kind of interesting since all the mocks that I did not go according to plan at all. So I kind of threw those out the window. And then, I went back and I was between Elliott and Brady, but then Zeke went right before me. So I stacked up Prescott, Brady, and then took Cam Akers in the 3rd. And then it's just been a wide receivers since then with Hopkins, Allen, Woods, Thielen, and then Cooks in the 10th. Other than that, it's been pretty surprising on how much value is dropping with everyone just jumping on running backs early.
Speaking of how different it is from the mocks, it is crazy what happens in certain drafts. Like Hawk was the other guy I was looking for, maybe as a tight end. I was thinking all the mocks he's going in the 4th, the 5th. In my draft, he went 212. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I had no chance.
It's funny. I was preparing for the craziest draft, and mine went straight chalk like the whole first 4 rounds. So I was so thrown. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, mine was pretty quarterback heavy. There was some value dropping. Hawk did go early, but like I said, receiver value, especially like I said, I got Hopkins in the 5th, which is lower than I've seen him go in most drafts. And receivers generally go later, but a guy like him, you usually see someone get him a little earlier than that. I know some people picked him at like 302 or something like that.
Yeah, I got sniped. Hawk went 406, and I picked at 407. So like the next pick up, I was like, Hawk's going to be mine. So I ended up going for Andrews second, and with Jackson figuring stacks. It's kind of like a best ball tournament. Like you got to get a little crazy. Like so, let's just kind of go all in. And then I got Carr, and then in the 5th round, all 3 of those guys, Jackson, Andrews, and Carr, all have a week 8 bye. So I'm like, well, that could be interesting. So I ended up having to go a little earlier on my 3rd QB with Fitzpatrick in the 7th. And we had a ton of running backs and QBs go off early. So a lot of receivers were falling, which is great. But it's just like, it's brutal, some of those picks. We had one guy in our league, Armando, actually took 3 running backs with his first 3 picks. And then after him at pick 11, Billy Witt took 4 running backs in a row to start the draft. So like we have some guys with very running back heavy teams. And then on the other end of the draft, you get guys with 5 receivers through 8 picks. You know what I mean? So like there's just all sorts of teams out there, which is going to make this very interesting as we go through the season. I love it.
For sure.
All right, folks. We are doing a Superflex mock draft here today. So the first thing I always like to do when we go into our mock drafts to talk is go through some of the strategies that we are trying to employ when we hit a Superflex mock, or maybe some general draft strategy that you find personally helpful when you are playing, when you are in your draft room. So does anybody, let's see, is anybody really a big proponent of going quarterback when they have these super flexes?
I'm not at all. I mean, I would love to make sure you get one of the big 6, and then just kind of pace yourself and just try to catch the runs as they go.
I was actually going to jump in on that. If I'm picking at the turn, I will usually reach a little earlier because the first quarterback is pretty easy for me. I don't mind doing one quarterback, like you said. But when you miss out on that run, when you've only got one quarterback and 10, 12 quarterbacks go off, that can be brutal. So if I'm at the turn, like I did here, I ended up going 2 out of my first 3 as quarterback. And that's kind of my thought process if I'm at the turn, is try to get 2 of the first 3 as quarterbacks just so that those are locked in. Because the positional difference there is so drastic. Even if you get like 1 round different, I mean, sometimes like this draft, there wasn't really a run, but it's just like safety for me. Like I'd rather take that second one and be ready to go because there's plenty of value still falling. It's okay. So yeah, my thing is I do like doubling up on quarterback early, but it doesn't have to be first, second. It's not an urgent need. It kind of depends too, for like I said, where you are in the draft.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite.
I know you are, Rocky. I know you are.
Yeah, Andrew knows. I'm a wait on QB guy. I just like to scoop up that value everywhere else, especially running back, elite tight ends. The true positional scarcity is elite tight ends. And so yeah, I've drafted 1 so far through 6 rounds, and I didn't take him until the 4th in this draft. That's pretty typical for me.
I was surprised you took him so early. I was like, man, Rocky, you're reaching early there for Stafford in the 4th. You okay, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, I know.
So how comfortable are we on wait? Like how late, Rocky, how late are you willing to wait for your first quarterback in a super flex?
At least the 4th round. I generally don't go by round though. It's more I don't really care about getting a QB1. I generally try and pick 3 guys from that 13 to 24 range. And I'm fine with that. They, even guys, especially by ADP, if you're not just talking production QB 24, QB 20, or QB 16, you can get guys that are going to exceed their ADPs. And I'm talking too much and I need to pick, but yeah, I generally just try. That's where I go. So I try to get 3 guys really like 13 to 20.
Sure. And it really is. It's all about when that second semi tier sort of falls off, and then you're just ready to lock and load. Is that, or maybe you get the last one in that tier, and then hit 2 more later on.
Yeah, basically something like that. Like I said, once I just kind of feel like I said, I drafted I think 2 I mentioned, I forget those pre-show or when we're starting, but at 4th round in the fishbowl, my draft went a little QB heavy early, so I think he would have been like QB 15 or 16, something like that. So I generally just try and see where things are going in the draft, get a feel for it. If there had only been 11 quarterbacks at that point, I probably wouldn't have taken him then. But and I feel like I'm a little higher into it too. I also like him for fishbowl because I'm shooting for that upside. And if I'm going to wait on QB, I like the idea of going with a second-year guy who could make that jump. So it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think he just kind of didn't. He wasn't super inaccurate last year. He just didn't really throw. He didn't really sling the ball. You know, he made safe plays, and I think that's kind of good for this year. Obviously, they're kind of you hope that they sort of let the wheels come off and see what happens, or let the training wheels off and see what happens.
Yeah, and in theory, he has better weapons this year too. So
yeah,
and he also has an entire offseason and preseason, or OTAs and everything else to get used to. You know, last year was such a cluster in terms of these rookie acclimation into the NFL that you feel bad. You kind of threw him to the wolves a little bit, and it didn't look terrible. And I mean, I think there's no more. Is there a more polarizing middle tier, second tier quarterback than Tua in terms of range of outcomes that I've heard?
Probably not.
Talk about?
Yeah, no. And he was coming off that major injury, you know, from his last college season too, with no real off season to work with the team and all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've talked about it before, but I am back in on Tua this year. I'm happy. I'd be happy to draft him. And yeah, if you are one of those late quarterback drafters, I kind of like. I would be targeting a guy like him, or the guy I picked here at the 5th round was Justin Fields. I really enjoy having Justin Fields on my roster as that backup guy. Usually in a redraft, especially if a guy like that doesn't pan out, maybe not in the fishbowl because it's such a high stakes league, you're not going to always get, but you may find a guy or two that through injury or something like that that you can find. You always want to get a third quarterback. I think I always try to have a third quarterback in Superflex if I can. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but if you had Justin Fields is a guy I'd like to have another backup with just in case, but I think that he's going to once Andy Dalton lets go of that job, which won't be long. I think it'll probably be a game at most. He'll be good for fantasy.
And I was going to ask you guys that actually, because so with the 3rd round reversal, as we were kind of talking pregame, is that I can't say sniped, but the top 5 quarterbacks that were available to me without taking one, all got taken. Tannehill being the last one at 301, and I had Devontae Adams, and so I thought I picked Devontae Adams in the morning. I hit what I suppose or assumed was the submit pick player. 4 hours later, I realized I did not actually make a pick. It did some kind of. It was like and I want to do MFL enough, but regardless, things happen, and so at that point, that's when I started to reconsider. I don't know if I want to take Devontae Adams. Now I'm looking at the quarterbacks available. So I took Jalen Hurts as my 1, and I end up taking Justin Fields as my 2. Now, that has me a little concerned because I'm not the biggest Jalen Hurts fan. But Justin Fields, as we were talking about him, how many games in do we think he lasts until he actually takes over for Andy Dalton? Obviously, week 1's going to be really difficult. I think that's the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah, I think they're going to start Dalton because it's the Rams.
Exactly. Throw him to the Wolves and say, here you go. And then
for Aaron Donald, yeah.
But do we think, 3?
Yeah, I don't think it's more than 3.
Well, to me, it really depends on how well is Chicago doing this year. I mean, Dalton's very well experienced to lead this team into the playoffs, and they proved last year that they have a decent defense to carry the load. So to me personally, I don't know if they're sitting at 4-2, 4-3. I can't justify a move to Justin Fields at that point.
That's what's going to make it messy. Is if they're doing well with Dalton, it could delay Fields' start. But ironically, I think if they're 0-4, it almost makes it like why risk Fields, right? So like there are definitely pro and negative narratives to all of this. I think it's going to be a feel for Fields. It's going to be like, do we feel like Dalton gives us the best chance to win? Do we feel like he is getting the game management kind of role under his belt and we can, get through the game? Or is it, I give up, we need to get Fields on the field so that he can start learning how to play and kind of get some reps? Like it's going to be a tricky situation. And the fact that they have somebody like Dalton, who I would equate similar to Tua last year with Fitzpatrick, but Dalton isn't Fitzpatrick. right? Dalton isn't someone you can lean on, but he's a veteran presence who can start the season and kind of give your rookie a little time to acclimate. So I think that there is going to be a switchover. I think we all agree. None of us know when that is. I would love Fields to start week 2, right? Like we just have a definitive thing, but
I know when it is. It's week 2 of preseason when he makes one rushing first down, and then the whole city is going to go crazy, and it's not going to matter, and eventually they're going to have to, the pressure is going to be on to play Justin Fields. Even they might not start him that first game. It's true, but once they see what's coming with Fields, you already see things in camp about people being excited. Allen Robinson being excited to have him there. That he's really working well with the team, and it's not going to take long. You can't really hold the curtain behind, hold it behind the curtain for all that long. So I think, yeah, they are going to try their best to sort of suppress what they can and give it a well-tempered approach. But ultimately, I think it's going to be too much. We see quarterbacks that are rookies start more often than not, and they start the majority of games more often than not. So I think it's sooner rather than later. Again, there is that chance that that Andy Dalton can take them there, but I also don't think he's necessarily there for, that he might have the heart of the team at this point, especially if Fields shows out in camp in the preseason.
Yeah, you made a pretty good point. I mean, as soon as he touches the field, the people in the stands and all the media in Chicago are going to put as much pressure they can on Nagy and that coaching staff to make that switch. So, I mean, it's just going to see how they're doing. And without Rodgers reporting right away, that division's up in the air. So that might put in a little more, thought into holding up on Fields, especially if they're having a good run.
You don't think Detroit has a chance? You think that they're not going to make it with Goff and no receivers? Oh, okay.
I mean, they'll bite as many kneecaps as possible, like Campbell has stated. But on the football field, no.
But they won't be wiping butts.
Yeah,
that's right. They will not be wiping. They will bite your kneecaps, but they will not. They will not.
I love that quote.
No butts will be wiped in that facility.
A lot of raw asses.
I think, yeah, exactly. I think we just went through a whole pandemic. We don't need another one because nobody's wiping their butt.
Don't shake hands. That's all.
That's right. That's right. All right, we're having a great time here on Primetime Mock, and we're getting close to the end here. If you want to talk about the last few picks that come through as they trickle on, we can do that. But let's go through some of the builds that we've had in this draft here. I want to hear from Evan. Go ahead, Evan. Go ahead and give me your. Oh, he did it to me. He did it to me again, Evan. Man,
Evan's having a rough time with the internet.
Hold on,
man.
I got him. I got him back.
It's Idaho.
Evan, it's Idaho.
Yeah,
This is Idaho.
This
It's
is
the Idaho
hot.
comment. It's the comment
This
I
is
made
not
about
good, man.
Idaho. This is what. Evan, while you
Yeah,
still
up the
can, please
internet.
give me what's happening in your draft. Please tell me.
I'm more curious what's
man.
happening with this service.
I know. I'm assuming it's a tight end premium. I hope it is, but either way, I was pretty happy to get Darren Waller in the second round. I love Darren Waller. For me, Superflex, I know there's been some differing opinions, but for me, like every team I've ever had, if I don't have two really, really solid quarterbacks, it just doesn't feel right. I just don't like the build. So that's why I went Herbert in the first round, and then I picked up Tannehill, who I think is always undervalued. He's, been at nothing but elite since he went to Tennessee. To be honest, I normally go a little bit more running back heavy. It's just the way the draft fell. I'm a pretty big believer in not having a hardcore draft strategy, but just letting the board sort of fall to you. So I'm not like a zero RB truth or anything like that, but I do love Javonte Williams. I think he'll be really solid there in Denver. Justin Jefferson obviously is a stud, and then just loaded up on some young, wide receiver talent, and then picked up Zach Moss, just one of the better available backs at that stage, just to fill out the starting roster there. So yeah, for me, I like to kind of just let the board come to me and take what I think is the best value. I got sniped a couple of times here, which I'm not too happy about. Pretty annoyed that Chenault went right before me. I'm a pretty big Chenault truther, and also there was another one that really hurt. Let me see here. Where was it? It was Deontay Johnson, same guy. Who is this? Who is Dynasty?
That's Rocky.
That's me.
It's Rocky, right?
Rocky.
Don't say.
Rocky,
don't say.
what is
who
your
you like.
I am the biggest
Like-
Deontay Johnson guy out there.
Yeah.
So.
Deontay
He's real
Johnson,
high.
literally, I was like, it's okay. Deontay Johnson's here. I'll be happy with that. You know, my wide receiver too. That's sexy. But no. And then Laviska Shenault, I was super excited about that as well. So yeah, that made me sad, Rocky. But other than that, like I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy with that build. I think it's a lot of great young wide receiver core, 2 really, really solid quarterbacks, an elite tight end, and a couple young running backs. And if I need to, I can obviously trade for another one or draft one next year if it's a dynasty.
Yeah, I'm glad I can mess up your draft, Evan.
Twice.
And one thing Evan said that I think is important. One thing that Evan said that I think is really important, that a lot of our drafters here and a lot of the fantasy community has become more about just sort of reading the room. You can't just have the one-off. Here are my top 100 ranks. Here's how it goes. You have to sort of tier. I tried to not even really rank my players too tightly. I really like to think in large clumps of tiers. Who are the players I think who can be in the top 4? Who are then the players that I think can be in the top 16? And I sort of think like that, and that's how my tiers go. And I think that way you don't get too tied to a player. You obviously evaluate every one of these players and how well each one of them plays. You have the ones you like better and the ones you don't. But you really, at the end of the day, have to think sometimes that there is so much variance that you need to really loosen up your tiers. You need to think about really where is the value coming from in your draft, not where is this player that I exactly want. If you think that way, then you can sort of think back. Okay, here are the next 5-6 running backs that I really want, and if they don't come to me, then I'm going to take a wide receiver because that tier is higher. That's what a lot of us do here, and I really like having all of us come through and sort of repeat that message over and over again, even though I don't necessarily ask everyone to say it. Let's go to Nate. Why don't you give us your draft?
Yeah, so obviously the first round, it's hard to get too particular about getting, I say, sniped about a person. But I had Kyler Murray. I thought at 6, which is honestly, it's kind of why I picked that spot too. It's kind of nice when you can pick your own draft spot. You go in with this mentality of who you're going to pick and do that reverse draft. And I don't know if a lot of you guys do the reverse draft in some capacity where you have a position or a group of players late at a particular position that you're comfortable taking. And that means you can stack up pretty heavy on other positions earlier in the draft. If it works in about, I'd say probably 1% of all the drafts I've ever been in. So it's probably a stupid philosophy, but I like to believe that it does work in some capacity. And this, 10 rounds, you attack. And like we've said, nonstop, like my tiers. I like to know that if I'm can get that top of that tier, or I'll wait. I have Dak mixed in with all the others, and that's pretty simple. And Superflex, I think the biggest thing is waiting on that number 2. And for me, I had to take a gamble and determine if Jameis Winston is going to be that starter in New Orleans. And it's either going to bite you in the ass or it's not going to. And now if we have further rounds, you can take that third and just wait and see. Does anybody really believe it's going to be Taysom Hill?
There are people, but I don't. Yeah,
there
are definitely people out there that do.
Thinks it's Taysom Hill.
There you go.
To be honest,
he wants it to be, but I don't know if he actually will pull the trigger to give him the work. Go ahead, finish up what you were going to say.
Well, to be honest, I actually think at this late in the draft, there's no reason you shouldn't be trying to get either one of them because one, I think again, the likelihood is probably closer to 50-50 than we think. Either way, whatever side you're on, how close it is probably closer to 50-50 than we all think. And if you are a Taysom Hill guy, there is at least an argument for it. He is the one with the 4-year contract of the two of them.
I know,
and he does not have a 4-year contract.
Based on how that contract's built,
that's a 4-year contract.
That's a 1-year rental.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just either way. He's got that contract. He did have the starting job last year. And if you miss out on Jameis, if you're a Jameis guy and you miss out on Jameis, I don't see why you shouldn't be taking Taysom. If you miss out on Taysom, I don't see why you shouldn't be going for Jameis. And again, it's part of like where you're going in your draft, because either way, if whichever one is it, that's gonna be a league winner potentially. That's where we're going with this pick. So why not have either one? You can have your preference. You could take one ahead of the other, but I would say attack that quarterback position there. See what happens.
Yeah, Taysom can't throw the ball though.
Correct. Exactly.
That's true. But it's a 10th round, and you don't necessarily he was a great QB1 for a pretty good stretch just running the ball last year. So
he
was.
He throws those slants very well.
He does. Makes me wish I had actually. I kind of targeted Jameis late. He's one of my targets late. It's not in Scott Fishbowl necessarily. The interceptions, pick sixes, and the just the overall completion percentage has me a little concerned. But in a standard format like this, just chuck it. Makes me wish I'd have looked at maybe Michael Thomas at some point. But I have Devontae Adams at the top of my tier, assuming Aaron Rodgers. We all have to assume the same thing. We don't know anything more than what we know, but it is what it is. In the third round for me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is one of the guys that. And I'm a Chiefs fan, so obviously my homerism kind of comes through a little bit. But at the same time, that offensive line has improved exponentially. I believe they've already said so far they want to get him more involved in the passing game. And if you look at the running backs in the third round, that's just prime real estate. And I think he could turn into an RB1 this year. It's the range of outcomes are there. Chris Carson is about as safe a floor as I can ask for. And then you throw in Julio Jones and Cooper Kupp, and it's wide receivers just – does it feel like this is the deepest wide receiver group we've had in the past 5-6 years, maybe longer?
I feel like we say it every year, and every year I still agree. You're right.
I think it gets deeper every year somehow.
Yeah. Well, the spread offense continuing to grow across all teams, and I would say not Tennessee, but now Tennessee, and I'm talking about Julio Jones, and they're incorporating that with Arthur Smith gone. But it does. It feels like there's now legitimately 9-10 rounds worth of wide receivers that we can continue to take on. And I don't know.
I don't know if any of you have played in a 2 wide receiver league anytime recently, but oh my God, it is unbearable. The wide receiver is worth nothing. It's worth absolutely nothing.
I'm in a one with this starts 2 wide receivers and it's 0.25 points per carry in Superflex. Wide receiver and tight end premium. Wide receivers are really worth nothing.
You literally might as well just hit the waiver wire every week
I know.
That is insane.
All right, let's thank you, Nate, for your draft. Let's go to Andrew. Andrew, go ahead and give us your draft.
Sure. Yeah. So, like I said, I had the 102. I was at the turn. I figured, it's either at 2, it's either McCaffrey or Mahomes for me. Like I even in Dynasty, I could see the argument of maybe going another quarterback there. But if it's redraft, I only got 1 year. McCaffrey is one of, if not the best player on the field. He's 2 positions in one, so that made an easy pick for me. Coming back around, I took Rodgers as my first QB. I thought about it like, well, if Rodgers doesn't play, I might be screwed. But if he plays, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback probably. So that's worth the risk. And that's why I went in third round reversal, obviously made that a little funky. But then got Burrow as my second. And the way I like to do that is like an aging guy, a little bit riskier with Rodgers. And then I think a really solid floor with Burrow. I think Burrow's got a pretty good ceiling this year too with the addition of Jamar Chase. But that floor is solid with the 3 receivers they've gotten mixing out of the backfield. I just really like Burrow this year. So like I said before, taking 2 QBs as my first 3 is kind of what I like to do in these just to be safe, especially at the turn. If I was in the middle, I'd probably play the draft board a little more. But as I get closer to the ends, I try to drive who I want more. I'm willing to reach a little further and kind of take value 1 and then reach on the second, something like that. So the short term there, I got Dobbins. So I'm like, I'm feeling pretty happy with that. Receivers are all over the place. I think we hit on it before. They're deep as ever. I mean, there are tons of receivers I don't mind having as a wide receiver 1. Got TJ Moore, Chase Claypool, and DJ Chark. I got the 2 DJs in the chase. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy with that. I will say I did want Jamar Chase, so Z2 Fantasy sniped me on that one. I was like, I got to pair my – nope, don't get the pair Burrow with Chase. That's okay.
You're never going to get him when Z2's in the room. You know that for sure.
I'm a Bengals fan too. I almost took him in the 4th, and I'm like, no, I don't need to go crazy. I also don't necessarily think that Chase as a wide receiver 1 is very safe. It's a very risky play for me just because it's a rookie, and we don't quite know if he's going to be – he could be Jerry Jeudy or he could be Justin Jefferson, right? Like he has all these range of outcomes that it makes it tough to rely on him. So getting sniped there was kind of like, well, okay, I'll go more safe and take DJ Moore, who I think is going to be a stud this year. And then looking at the teams overall, I took Fitzpatrick with my 10th pick as a third QB just because I think he is going to ball out this year. I think the way that that offense improved and everything, I just think that's a solid pick for a backup QB. Could be better than Burrow depending on how that goes, or if Rodgers doesn't play or holds out, gives me some solid options there. But looking at my total team and Rocky's total team, they look oddly similar with very different positions. We got McCaffrey and Barkley, Dobbins and Taylor, Ronald Jones and Michael Carter. Like those running backs are all like I kind of see the similarities. And we got Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford. Okay. Burrow and Tua, same draft class. And then Fitzpatrick and
the old guy,
old dudes at the end just to kind of cover up, right? Then looking at receiver, got DJ Moore and CeeDee Lamb, both stud potential wide receiver ones. We got Claypool and Deontay Johnson, same team. DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, same team. And then we got TJ Hawkinson for me, who was with his Stafford. But then Kittle, who obviously he took earlier, but I think Hawkinson's the next Kittle. So I feel like, Rocky, you and I are on the same page.
I know. I guess that's why we're
together.
Yeah, exactly.
You can take
I just think it's funny to looking at the way the teams drafted and like how I went quarterback early and he went tight end earlier than I did and all that. Like the teams still come out very similar, which I think is hilarious because it just reiterates the fact there is no wrong way to draft, right? It's however you feel like your players are, however you feel like the draft is coming. And I don't like it when people say things like, well, I wouldn't have taken him in there. That was a wrong pick. There's never a wrong pick. You can say, I wouldn't have taken that, but I don't blame you for doing it. Right.
Ronald Jones is a wrong pick.
Fair. That's fair. I have been coming around on Ronald Jones.
I've been a long time Rojo hater. I think Andrew probably knows that.
I do. And I was a Ronald Jones stan for 2 years and he let me down and I'm like, I'm out. But coming back in this year, kind of like Mixon, I'm like, man, maybe this is it. So I did just post something on Twitter earlier where I was like, why is it that Ronald Jones is going ahead of Leonard Fournette and SFB? Because they're about a round apart. One's round 9, one's round 10, something like that. And it just because I mean, honestly, like they're both pretty meh to me. Like I'm not really wowed by either one. But I just think the way that Fournette ended that season, the narrative of that, they're going to lean on him more. I think he came in really late, if you recall, in the preseason, and that preseason was rough last year anyway. So I feel like the way Ronald Jones hit the ground early makes sense. He was more familiar, but I don't think Bruce Arians likes Ronald Jones. So as much as I took that pick, it was really just to talk about him and be like, man, I am still just not 100% on Ronald Jones. I just don't want to get burned again. But I don't know.
Bruce Arians is a smart man.
I think Bruce Arians, to be honest, tries to make sure that he doesn't like any of his running backs. He like really tries to
tell us anything.
He disparages every single one of them. When Davis Johnson was coming off of a back end RB1 season and then through his crazy RB1 season, he's like, oh, he needs to make sure that he's he needs to make sure that he's running his routes properly or doing whatever. He had his all sorts of things that he went toe to toe with Tom Brady this year. He's not BA don't care. He's going to do what he wants.
I think Tom Brady won that though.
Tom Brady did win that, but I guess they all won. It was win anyway. All right, Rocky, why don't we go with your draft? Go ahead. I know that Andrew already did my draft. I know that Andy promoted. He's trying to keep your mouth shut, Rocky. I won't let him. Go ahead.
I mean, this is some fairly typical of what I do. I actually probably would usually go a little more running back heavy than this, but I took Barkley and Taylor 109 and 204, starting at the 109. Big Barkley guy this year. I think he bounces back. The offense has improved with the guys around him. I think I was just listening on the late round QB podcast, and JJ Zacchaeus was mentioning that offense is due for some touchdown regression. I think Barkley will help with that. And the Galladay addition doesn't hurt. So Taylor's pretty, easy pick there. Kittle, I always tend to go elite tight end, like I said. I was happy to get one of the big three, and I got the cheapest one of the big three. As long as Kittle stays healthy, he's right up there with Waller and with Kelsey. I mean, Kelsey last year is ridiculous, but in general, a typical Kelsey season, he's right there too. And then Stafford, like Andrew said, that actually might even been a little early for me. I'm looking at it now. I almost wish I had passed on Stafford and taken one of the Javonte, Miles Sanders, or David Montgomery, one of the next three running backs that went. And that probably would have pushed one of those quarterbacks that went between my two picks down. I mean, I would have been fine with Tannehill or Hurts or Lawrence there probably. So, but I'm happy getting CeeDee Lamb as my wide receiver one. Second year, he sort of broke out already, but I see a massive breakout coming this year. I think he goes past Amari. So I like him as a wide receiver one. As we established, I'm a big Deontay Johnson stan. He's my most owned player in Dynasty. I think I have him on like 35% of my teams. The target share is ridiculous. The volume's going to come down, so he might not get 140 whatever it was last year, but he's still the leading target getter on that team with two other good receivers. Ben loves him. I got Tua at the 704, which, like I said, we already talked about Tua before. I see him making that jump in year 2. Laviska, I'm warming up to a lot. There's been a lot of good reports about him. I think one of him and Shark is going to break out in that receiver core, and it's just a matter of which one. So I'll take the risk on it being Laviska in round 8.
Not cool.
And then Michael Carter in round 9. He's another guy I really like. Like I said, I'm fine with him as an RB3, and he's got a definite path to being the lead guy there. And then, like we said, Ben. I like to get 3 guys. Ben is underrated. I know he doesn't throw the ball deep, but they like to pass a lot there. Najee might trim that down a little, but he can still dump off to Najee a lot too. So I think he's a solid high end 2, low end 1 even this year. So I like to have 3 guys because I generally don't go with like the Allens, the Prescotts, the Jacksons. So that way I can mix and match them. So I took him to round it out at the 10th pick.
Sure. Yeah, I like it.
One thing I would say. Sorry, what I was just going to say is one thing I would mention as well. Obviously, I primarily play Dynasty. I do my writing and stuff over at Dynasty Nerds. I'm always thinking Dynasty, so apologies if this is like supposed to be more of a redraft.
Hey, it's fine. It's
mock.
It's whatever you want it to be. I mean, for a lot of the time, I think a lot of my redraft is still kind of almost Dynasty leaning. I have
trouble getting out of that mindset.
Even in a redraft, you still kind of want some rookies, and you shouldn't, but you want them, and you don't want to. And you could trade for them later on, and they might be on the waiver wire, but you don't know that you really want Terrace. Really want Terrace Marshall. It just happens.
Well, because for me, the reason I said that is because it was just an important part of my strategy. If it's a startup, if it's Dynasty, I love trading. So I always assume that half of the people I'm drafting, I'm never going to have in my team long-term anyways, because I'm just going to trade them. So, because obviously if you look here, like I stacked Sutton and Judy, which is a pretty terrible stack in the sense of like if Drew Lock is going to be their quarterback this year, it's not great. But I see them both as very young, very talented, semi-elite, options. So for me, I just look at that, especially at that stage in the draft. I'm just looking at what I think is like one of the best, if not the best players available or highest ceiling. So I have no problem for me, like taking 2 players, 3 players from the same team. If I think they're all studs or if I think they're all, value where they are, I have no problem with that personally, because I'm happy to trade one of those 2. You know what I mean? So I've got Sutton and Judy. I'll trade one of them to whoever wants one of them, who has more running backs and, that sort of way. So just because this is one of the nuances of the way I draft. And I know some people don't like that. Some people will, they'll draft Amari and then they'll be like, oh, I couldn't possibly draft CD because I don't want too many Cowboys or whatever. Whereas to me, I'm just like, hey, if they're the best player available at that stage, I'm a pretty big believer most of the time in best player available. So if I think they're the best player or one of the best players, I'll just take them because I'm like, hey, I love trading anyway. If they're going to be a more valuable, I'd rather have, Jerry Jeudy to try and trade with than, I don't know, like Melvin Gordon. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't think Melvin Gordon, especially if it is a dynasty league, he's not gonna get me much,
And you know what? That's the other thing is like we're doing this redraft in July. We don't start a game until September, right? So this is really this is more of an exercise, right, for us to become sharper when we actually get to our drafts. But if we were drafting here in July, you might be thinking, okay, well, I probably want to make some trades from now until September with my league mates. And that's absolutely, even if it's not Dynasty, that's good because you need to think of it a little bit like the stock market. It's where the perceived value is, not necessarily where all the value is. So if you are starting with an early league like this, an early draft like this, and you can do these trades, maybe you should have more of that stock market approach where you say, yeah, I know these guys still are going to blow up in camp, and then I can trade them because I don't know if they're actually going to have a great season.
Exactly.
But they will have all the hype on them that people will want to move them up there in their ADP, and that's when I'll trade, and that's where I win.
So it's like they're talking about with Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks coming out soon, and
that's right.
Cowboys. And there will be no better time for CeeDee Lamb if you really believe that Gallup or Lamb or Amari Cooper or any of the ones, their value will improve by probably a good round and a half, 2 rounds after Hard Knocks, if they have that much room to improve, because you have media hype, and that's the driving force.
It's
all
a
right,
real
Alex.
thing.
Real quick,
for sure.
Alex, why don't you give us your draft here?
Well, clearly you saved the best for last. I appreciate that. Obviously,
well, one of us hasn't gone yet, Alex.
Well, you're the host, and you probably had the computer pick. Only
for the first time.
Only the first few. The way I try to do Superflex is just make sure I get one of the top 6, and then, like I stated earlier, kind of play it by ear and see where the flows are going. But based on how I drafted, I did not realize I am a very injury-prone team with Mixon, Cooper, Mostert, and Connor. But I took to me, it was just a lot of, these values and where they're going. So I took Diggs in the second. I mean, he led the league in targets. I can see him leading the league in targets again, especially if Rodgers is not with Green Bay. I mean, that's just opened the door for Diggs and Buffalo. Mixon, I can see him coming back, being a top 12 running back. He's proved every time he's on the field that he can produce those numbers. It's just, can he stay for 16 games? And Gio Bernard leaving Cincinnati just gives him more work in the passing game. Keenan Allen, I love. Mari Cooper, I love. Keenan Allen more so that with their offensive coordinator coming over from New Orleans, I can see him being peppered like Michael Thomas been peppered. So I love Keenan Allen, especially in the 4th and 5th. Matt Ryan, I think, is my only questionable pick so far through the 6 rounds. I just don't know if Julio moving helps or hurts Ryan yet. I know everyone's so hyped about Kyle Pitts, but I'm not hyped until a rookie plays it down in the NFL and actually see what they can do. I mean, Mostert, injury prone, but if he can stay healthy, I think that is a steal and could be easily a top 12 pick or a top 12 running back, based on how that offense is forming and the fact that they plan probably on running 500 times this year. Daniel Jones, I love. I've been saying on my own podcast that, like, this is a make or break season for Daniel Jones. They put all the weapons around him. If he can't produce even mid-tier quarterback 2 numbers, then he clearly is not the quarterback for them. Damian Harris, I think, is a late round sleeper for everybody, that if Mac Jones takes over that starting job, they're going to go to a more typical style offense, and Damian Harris is the only running back that has value there. And James Conner, to me, is a sneaky pick. Obviously, he's going to take over the Kenyon Drake role, and Cliff loves to run goal line up the middle, and that's why they picked up Hudson from LA. So I can see this offense being more run-friendly, and I don't see Edmonds taking as much as everyone thinks he is. But other than that, I'm pretty solid with this team. I like it a lot.
I think Connor is going to have a much bigger role than people think. He'll definitely have. I mean, like he should have most of the goal line carries. Although actually, Kyler should probably have most of the goal line carries. But even still, if it's a committee between Connor and Kyler and Chase, I think Chase is on the way out there as far as.
What was it against Miami? He pretty much shown what he can do with the workload. Yeah. And Miami didn't have that strong of a defense on the ground. So I just think, I mean, if Connor can stay healthy, he's still got it. He can put up top 15 running back numbers. It's just, can he stay healthy and see the field?
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. Evan led off with the injury prone and some listed off some of the guys, and rightfully did not mention Keenan Allen, whereas 3 years ago, Keenan Allen would have been included in there. It just shows you're injury prone until you're not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't count a lacerated kidney,
but
or
a lot of people
had.
did. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have been playing long enough to when Fragile Freddy was a thing.
Fred Taylor, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that wasn't a thing. It was all basically, it was over the course of about a year and a half's worth, 2 years worth of sample. And for the next 6 years, he was Fragile Freddy, and yet he didn't miss games. And so there's a hyperbole and sometimes this rhetoric that some of these players are injury prone when they're not, like you said, lacerated kidney. I mean, or spleen.
Yeah, whatever
you can't use that.
Yeah, I tend to think mostly injury prone is not a thing.
I believe that is an article that Dr. Edwin Porras put out a few weeks ago, actually, that I read and is very that he says that injury proneness is really not really a thing that we think it is. So as long the way that I draft is if the seal hasn't been broken for the year, like if they're coming in clean for camp and they don't have any injuries going into the season, I'm going to take them. If they pick up an injury, I'm going to knock them down in a spot that I'm probably not going to take them anymore. And I just, again, so much variance. I'd rather just have some healthy players and see where that goes. There are always players that you love. You always players you miss out on. And I think, sometimes I'd rather just have a healthy team going in. And sometimes that's all you need, because really at the end of the year, you need a healthy team as well. And even if that person comes back, you don't know how long that their injury is going to plague them and actually make it difficult for them to perform the way that they want to. So that's kind of how I go about it. But other than that, like if they came off an ACL, like I have no problem. In Scott Fish, I had no problem drafting Cortland Sutton this year. He's a guy that I don't think it's going to be an issue going through. He's a talented young guy, young athlete, and he doesn't really have that much history as far as injuries are concerned in the first place. So guys like that, I'm not worried about them until the injury pops up. Once the injury pops up, then I'm worried. But
I'll say this about injuries real quick. It's odd to hear injury prone in a sport where there are car crashes every 30 seconds.
Yeah,
right. Are you really injury prone, or are you just standing in the middle of a road and dodging cars all day? Like everyone is injury prone in the NFL. Like everyone is in this sport. They're literally hitting each other at 50 miles an hour in some cases, right? So like you're gonna get hit, you're gonna get injured. It's just part of the game. Yeah. And I don't like the tag of injury prone, because then it makes it seem like someone's more prone to injury. Every single person in that field, even some of the coaches on the sidelines, are just as likely to get injured, right? It's like it's a dangerous sport. You're going to see it. Exactly. And to that note, exactly like you said, I'm not afraid of Burrow. I'm not afraid of Barkley. I'm not afraid of Sutton. Like the Achilles injuries scare me a little more, because that statistically is harder to come back from and things like that. And like foot injuries the year after with receivers. And there's some data that supports some of the specific injuries. But overall, having like your shoulder pop and then your knee pop, that doesn't make you injury prone. You just got hit twice in weird ways with these odd collisions. So like, I'm not afraid of that.
You can go, Evan.
Oh, no, I'm actually glad you guys kind of stayed on that topic, because I hate the term injury prone, because it's like you said, like I stubbed my toe and I can't walk for 2 hours. Yet these guys are getting hit in every angle. I mean, it's not an injury prone. It's just like bad luck, basically.
Yeah, I step on the Lego and I'm calling off work. You know what I mean? I was just like, oh my God.
I was just going to say to Andrew's point, it's almost
I step
more
on the Lego and I'm in bed for like 3 days. Yeah. I mean, that thing is brutal. That is brutal, Legos. All right, we've had a great time tonight on Primetime Mock. Let's go back through and get everybody's information. Alex, where can we find you?
I'm on Twitter at Alex_Kerp4489. Also, don't forget to YouTube the League of Tomorrow. Like I said earlier, we just started this podcast. We're on episode 10 now. Just having a little fun, throwing out some more content, just seeing what we can do with it.
Are you feeding your guests worms anytime soon again?
Actually, stick for our next episode. We're doing some smoothies.
Oh. See, that's
Fear Factor edition.
Yeah, it reminds me. Oh my God, I'm watching some. I'm a big Brother guy in the summer. You know that. You know that, Alex. And they have those disgusting drink competitions. I have to leave the room. So I'll stay for the content. But with the second the
I have to say, it pays to be the host, because I don't have to do any of that shit.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's the way you do it. All right, Rocky Petrella, go ahead and give him your info.
First, I think I called Alex Evans, so I just want to apologize for that. The last time I addressed him, I apologize.
I didn't even catch it.
Okay, I think I did. But anyway, you can find me on Dynasty Junkies with Andrew. We've been going to broadcasting live the last 4 weeks or so. Andrew's actually coming on just this week. First episode is my new co-host. So you can generally catch us live at 9:30 every week on YouTube. Also hosting the Trade Addicts pod with Dynasty Outhouse, Russ Fisher, and occasionally hosting Dynasty Game Night, which Russ is also on, along with John Bosch and Matt Price as co-host. So a lot of stuff going on, a lot of fun. So check them all out. That's it. And follow Andrew.
Thanks, right.
Nice Andrew, segue. You want to give any more where we can find you, Andrew?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Andrew Hall FF. I am the co-host with Rocky on Dynasty Junkies. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a new podcast. No, I'm just kidding. It's been out for a while. It's a good one, and I'm really happy to step in there and help out. I think it'll be fun getting to start up with that. But I am still writing for FantasyPros. You can catch a lot of my work there. And then during the season, I'll be back at Pro Football Network as well. So got a lot of stuff coming out and kind of all over the place. You know how it is when in the off season, you're always looking for something to write about. But I always like a good debate on Twitter. So come hit me up. Let's have a discussion. You know, I'm always open to changing my mind if you present the right facts, is what I say to people. Like, I'm not just going to sit here and spew narrative, although I do love a good story. But at the same time, I'm open to a debate. Let's go have one.
Love it. Thank you guys both. All right, Nate Marcum, where can we find you?
You can find me. Well, you can't find me on Alex podcast. I guess we're gonna be drinking worms and shit like that. I'm out. So no offense. I mean, I'm open for an invite, but I might not have.
We'll hit you up on the fantasy content version.
I'll take you up on that for sure. And but you know, at Nate Marcum on Twitter, fantasyandframes.com, Fourth and Frames for the podcast. We have 64 different articles coming out, 32 teams, both offense and IDP, 2-a-days. It's summertime. It's 2-a-day time. So over the next 31 days, you'll find each one. We're starting in the NFC South right now and working our way through. So I'm probably about 2 teams behind right now than I should be. But if anybody wants to help me write, I'm open. So jump on in and give me a hand. But other than that, great time tonight. I appreciate the invite. I really do.
Yeah, it's always a ton of fun. Love getting just a random group of the fantasy community together and just see how it goes. That's what we always do here. We always have a great time here. And finally, Evan Brown, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find him in Idaho right now, or in Ireland. Other than that,
I think he's frozen. Let's just get Evan's Twitter handle at FFEvanLucian. Oh, is he back? Evan, can you hear us? No? Bark twice if you're in Milwaukee. No?
Are you in trouble?
Right. You know I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, you're good. You're good, Evan. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry about that. Where I'm
no problem.
In the flipping office. It is roasting out here. So I'm Evan. I write and do some Superflex ranking over at Dynasty Nerds. You can catch me on Twitter at FFEvanLucian. But yeah, thanks very much, guys, for having me on. It was a lot of fun. It was great to chat and hear some different ideas and different theories about, you know, drafting, trading, all that sort of stuff. So thanks very much for having me. It was a blast.
Absolutely. Loved having you. And all of you are welcome back anytime. Feel free to just hit me up, let me know, and I'm happy to throw you in. We never know who's going to pop in on a show from time to time. I've always got reshuffles. Somebody cancels the day before, the day after, you know, we figure it out. It's good. So I'll be happy to have any of you guys back, and I'll be happy to see all of you out there back next week. We've got a flex draft next week where we're going to take out the top 60 and draft after the top 60 and see where we go from there, and really key in on those flexes. That'll be, again, you know when, you know where, 9:00 on Thursday on Primetime Mock. Can't wait to see you again. Have a good weekend, everybody.
See you, guys.